down. So as I go through and edit these podcast episodes, you have an amazing way of introducing the podcast, an episode, but you also have an amazing way of summarizing it at the end. So I'm going to, so you can introduce us.
All right, I'll take it from here. Thanks for that virtual passing the mic, Miss Rhonda. So what we are getting into today is one process is powerful. And that is such a great alliterated title, I must say. I'm very proud of ourselves with that. But this is one of the things that comes up quite a bit in the clients that we serve and where we coach and consult. Process doesn't come naturally for a lot of people. And so that's what we're going to take a deep dive in today's episode. And I'm going to give you a little bit of teaser, a little bit of a spoiler alert. Rhonda has an incredible, simple process. Now we're going to get really meta here for creating a process. And it actually becomes a little bit fun. And anytime that you can incorporate fun in business, I'm all for it. Also, for those of you who are listening, who are more creative minded, right? Like you put Rhonda in front of a spreadsheet and it is like unicorns and rainbows. But for me, it's so I love what she's going to be sharing because it's so fun. I feel like it's like that Geico commercial. It's so easy a caveman can do. It's so fun that even I do it. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Rhonda and let her talk about her feelings on the power of process and how sooner rather than later, we want you, whoever's in listening shot, like now it's our responsibility because you came here to share your journey as an entrepreneur with us. So it's our responsibility to make sure that you understand how important it is to organize your processes sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And I think, so to introduce the episode, one of the things when you say process, I hope people's minds just didn't close and they just shut down. So the first thing that I want to say is I want you to give yourself forgiveness. I think that when we talk about process, just that creative, then I have to lasso you in. Come on over here. We're going to go step by step. So number one, forgive yourself. Number two, who is the boss? You are the boss. So your process, your processes can be as simple and as complicated as simple as you want them to be. They don't have to look like anyone else's process. The biggest thing is that whether you say you're a visual person or not, that we are taking that process out of your head and we are documenting it. That's all we're doing. We are recording how you do one thing. Now, when it comes to processes, I feel like I eat them up because I absolutely love them, but that hasn't always been the case. We have to put in the reps, and putting in the reps mean we have to do it once, and then we got to do it again, and we got to do it again and over again, until it's almost like when you're thinking about the process, we can become so granular, like we anticipate what's going to happen. And when you do that, then you have a complete direction. That's all we're doing is giving a task directions. And I have a simple way of introducing how to create a process. And at first I think they're like taken aback a little bit. They're like, what are you talking about? But I think it goes back to my kids in class. One of the presentations when they were itty bitties, they would have to get up in front of class every Thursday and they would have to do a presentation. And one of the types of presentations were how-tos. So I almost want us to think about process as a how-to. And the most easiest, unless you don't know what a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is how to create a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, when I've shared this example before, as soon as I say how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, if you're familiar with making that type of sandwich, you immediately go to what? We can use business speak, the tools and resources, the things that you need to make the sandwich. What are they? Knife, bread, peanut butter, jelly. We can get even more granular and say plate, right? To put it on, right? Now, how do you make it? step by step. And the way that you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich could be different than mine. Like I could slather like the peanut butter and jelly together. You could be one. And I'm sure Cassie probably mixes
I
them
have an
together.
opinion. This is a process. You have to put equal amounts of peanut butter. This mama sent peanut butter and jelly sandwiches like to school every day. I know you're a homeschooling mama, but I was making their lunches and sending them off to school. And if you made them a certain way, the jelly wouldn't bleed into the bread by the time they had the afternoon. So there was a strategy here. You've got to put a thin layer of peanut butter on each side and then the jelly in the middle. So that's so interesting that you say that, because that was one of the things that I went through. And it's so funny when you say the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, most people's minds go like, that's super simple. I remember when Hudson was asking me how to make a grilled cheese sandwich. And I said, you get the butter and you put it on the bread and you put it on the grill and you put the cheese on it. And so he put the butter on one piece of bread and he throws it on the grill and then he looks at me, what's next? That was literally the first time he had done it. So like he had no frame of reference for what's next. And in my mind, I'm like, you throw the cheese on there and then you put the other piece of butter. But had I not told him, he would have put the butter facing in. And it's those little things like that, those nuances of instructions that makes you appreciate. There's so many things and processes that we live our lives every day. I know we probably have a whole like backpack full of mama stories. Like packing the kids' diaper bags. That's a process. That's a strategy. Before the kids were there, here's my strategy and my process for when we were running errands as a newly married couple. I learned really quick that I would stop asking Adam if he would like a drink and a snack. Like my mommy mindset started way before we had kids. He would always say no. And then 5 minutes into the drive, he's, oh man, I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. Like I had a little kid already. And so I just quit asking. Because after enough repetition, I noticed a pattern and I didn't even ask anymore. And I just fixed a snack and a drink.
Okay, so let me unpack a lot of those things that you just said, but I'm going to start with saying, I thought as a creative that you would have already mixed the peanut butter and jelly together, unlike me, who would have peanut butter on one side, jelly on the other side, and smash them together. But I'm also thinking, yeah, I remember this peanut butter jelly sandwiches, like how nasty they would get, and you would open and you could smell. I know everyone is like smelling and like seeing these things, and just to bite down in that. But here's the thing, Cassie Brown, how would you know that would happen unless you did it once, you did it twice, you were putting in the reps. And so the problem, you solved it within that process. So your kids could go to school and not have soggy peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
That's
and
right.
Now,
and it's so dang fulfilling when that's like the highlight. Like you guys, you probably know it. If you can make it through a day and they freaking eat all of their lunch.
And I'll just, to put a bow on the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So yes, we homeschool, we do classical conversation. So there is a day where the kids, now just Thomas and Jack, go to meet with their tutors in their class. We use Uncrustables. So mama does not even make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But interestingly enough, and I can illustrate that when you were talking about the kids and packing the diaper bag. So here's another process for you. We both have 4 kids, right? The first baby, you go to the hospital and you bring everything and the kitchen sink. I was in the smallest room possible with the most people possible with this new baby. By baby number 2, I started leaving things home and I was preparing more. And it was great because I had C-sections the whole time, right? By the time baby Jack came, we had this thing down to a science. I had people bringing Daniel lunch. It was as if we were tailgating. We had coolers of drinks and refreshments for people who came. I knew how to talk to the nurses to get in the big room when I was in recovery. But I put in the reps. I put in the reps with the babies. And so by the last one, and they were like, do you want to go? No, I get 4 days. I get 4 days. I am not leaving because what I have right now are 4 babies in 5 years and a lot of stuff, a lot of hot mess at home. I am staying in the hospital.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Okay, I'll add mine really quickly because by the time we had McKaylee was number 3. She was known in the church nursery. Like these ladies were so impressed. She didn't have a diaper bag. I didn't leave her with it. She had a little carry purse, like a little, like maybe 8x8 little handheld purse. And what was in it? The thing of travel wipes, a few diapers, an extra outfit, a cup or a bottle, depending on her age at that point in time, and one of those little things that she could stick her hand in and get the Cheerios out herself. And that was it. That was how we rolled. And in every car, we had like infants Tylenol, Orajel, and all of that type of stuff. And I'm like, done. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny. And it's interesting. I think that a shout out to the moms, because I think that's one of the greatest skill sets is you learn. And I don't want anyone to feel left out. Like the aunts, the ones who just love on people no matter what, like you watch and you observe patterns and you have such a loving heart that is like, how can this be easier? How can this be more efficient? How can I cut these steps down? How can I say, because that one thing ends up saving space. When you start to remove things, it starts to shed off those extra 5, 10, 15 minutes and things like that. Like we repeated the same process when Farrah was going to ballet. We had a separate bag already packed with her shoes in it and everything else that she needed. So when it was jetting out the door, just grab the bag.
And I am so thankful that we are sharing more life experiences or processes and how we learned. And the whole idea, if you think about it, how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I am leveraging so much time and independence by doing Uncrustables now and saying, Thomas, pack your own lunch. But we've been doing this for a while.
Outsourcing.
Outsourcing. That's exactly. You are responsible for you. But I just want to untangle and uncomplicate what people's ideas are around processes. And I guess before we move on to the fun process, right? Before we do that, why do we want to use processes in our business and in our life? Why do we want to use processes, Cassie Brown?
Oh man, we just gave this training in our mastermind. And I will preface this for those of you who are listening, who are before building a team, currently building a team, or you have a team in place. If you have a team in place, I just want to encourage you to always be refining those processes and those roles. Like, how can we continue to make it easier and simpler? Because there is a way. You can always make it easier and simpler. And I just want to highlight that in the beginning, when I was growing my agency, I didn't want to be responsible for other people. So I didn't really respect creating processes because in my mind, I was going to do it anyway. And no one really needed to know what was going on in my head because I had this down to a science, just like everything else that we just shared. But what I realized very quickly, especially when Adam had a relapse, when what was left of the brain tumor progressed into cancer, that model was unrealistic because when I stopped, that meant the business stopped. That meant the revenue stopped. That meant everything that I had as support mechanisms for my family stopped. And it was a really rude awakening for me to realize I had put so much heart, soul, effort, and time, and I had incredible clients and I saw them through and I finished out the contracts. But when I was the one-man band, it was like really devastatingly like unrealistic. And I couldn't continue that way. So that's when I realized the responsibility and the reality of a team. If I was really going to go after this, if I was going to really create reliable income with my family without me touching every single little thing, that I needed not only to realize that I had processes, because I did, and it was a bit of a pain to pull them out of my head. But once I started realizing it, I found there's this satisfaction, like when you finish cleaning out your closet or when you've got something organized, it's like there's this sense of pride where I have a process and I kind of really do know what I'm doing, right? But it also just cut down on the pressure of me because I wasn't showing up every day wondering, like, where's the fire? Like the clarity and just knowing what I got to focus on and what I got to pass off to some incredible team members, the relief is almost indescribable.
Okay, I think we're like role reversing right now because I'm going to summarize and unpack some of the things that you just talked about. The biggest thing, and I hope the takeaway is that taking it out of your head, the amount, we don't realize how much baggage that we're carrying around. We're carrying around business processes along with what's for dinner, or I've got to get the kids to here, or I've got to go to the vet, or I need to get the oil changed. We keep all of that in our heads. And I always say, like, I'm advanced maternal age. Part of that was just, I could not handle it anymore. The anxiety, the heaviness, and in a future episode, we're going to get into other processes, but just have you brushed your hair? 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 Have you brushed your teeth? Have you brushed your teeth? And I'm doing this 4 times because I had 4 kids. All of that is jumbled up with, I'm running a mastermind, I'm coaching, I'm doing this, I've got to create content. Like, it's too much. And so this whole idea, my email address is multitasking maven. So I almost don't want to dispel the myth around the multitasking, but
blow it up, Rhonda. It deserves to be blown up. But parents, women, fathers, people, humans everywhere need to disentangle. And I used to be prideful of that. I was like, look how much multitasking I'm doing. And it should have been just replaced with, look how much I'm burdening my mind and my body and my soul, sucking the life out of me. And I think I should get a gold star for that.
And the thing is, okay, we're going down this rabbit hole. Nobody is doing that except you. Nobody is asking you to do that, run yourself into the ground, except yourself. And so you can choose what you want to do and how complicated and how simple. Is this a life episode or a business episode? I don't know how simple it is. And so the other thing, and I call this, Cassie and I, our onlyness factor. We have these situations that have happened, or these events that have happened in our life that I don't want to call them necessarily triggers, but what they have allowed us to experience, the gift that they've given us, is the value of our time and our attention and where we want to put it. And so at that point, it was Adam and what had progressed and what happened. And it was her back up against the wall. Like, she had to turn it over and document what was in her head, or her customers wouldn't get the deliverable, right? For me, that experience was, we had just moved into this house. It was a hot mess. Daniel was deployed. The kids were much younger, homeschooling, and my seasonal event was happening. And it just so happened that previous seasons I had done, and I'm going to give myself a little attagirl, I've done a really good job of documenting my processes. And at the time, I'm going to age myself, it was all in a 3-ring binder. This event happens every 6 months. The event, it's no longer about like the revenue generated. This event served people where they literally would get everything their kids needed for the season. They could do that at my event. Not only people coming and buying, but we were very unique in that the donations that we would offer were all things for children. So if we did not have the event, that cascade, that domino effect that would happen would be very impactful to, I want to just say, thousands of people, those that shopped and those that we supported through our donations. Had I not taken that 3-ring binder and given it to my best friend, Leanne, I can't do this. I need for you to carry on. Now, in my mind, friends, and I will tell you, it's not a moment exaggeration, those events each day were like 10, 12-hour days. literally 10 or 12-hour days. In my mind, up to that point, I thought that I had to be present in order for those things to happen. Because the processes were documented, I could now give them to Leanne. And guess what? At the end of the day, everything was taken care of. Where I felt like I had to be present, what that process allowed me to do was to duplicate myself. Now, you said something else, and I want to just really quickly, because I know in future episodes, we'll open this loop up. You talked about team. Cassie and I are of the idea that a team could be tight. It does not have to be big. A team can be just this nice, small ecosystem of people in their zones that keep you in your zone. If you are at the beginning stages of your business, beautiful. Still document your processes. Because what Cassie just also said, as I'm unpacking everything, is a process is not set in stone. It's not concrete. 17 years into running that event, we had processes, but we were still, up until the time that I sold that business, still refining those processes. The refinement is for the customer experience, but it's also your experience. It's twofold. So I don't know like how we got down this rabbit hole. I think it's a good rabbit hole that we're in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was such a gift. That was such a gift. If I had realized just how important and how freeing just documenting the process, and I'm talking like a spiral notebook, a Google Doc, a Google Sheet, like nothing fancy whatsoever, just getting it out of here. It's just, I think the only visual I could share is like when, you know how when you declutter a space, it just feels so good visually, but energetically. That's what we're doing for our mind when we're documenting a process. And it's one of those things where I think our brains naturally lean for efficiency, where it's like even going to the gym. And I know we're going to be talking about how to create habits and things like that. For me, when I first started going to the gym, like it was a little complicated process. And then I kept evaluating, how can I do this quicker? How can I set myself up to win? And that was the thing. And I feel like that's how impact driven businesses and leaders, they're always asking that question, like, how can this experience be better, not only for the people that we serve, but our internal team, for us as leaders, for the CEOs and things like that. And I feel like that's a commitment and responsibility that we get to choose to have in our businesses, is to continue to have that ethos and to look at it like that, and to have that commitment of continual improvement. So there's like my little mini soapbox. And I just want to say, when you do get ready to reveal the super simple, amazing process that's actually fun, give me a little sign so I can do a virtual drum roll.
I think it's a beautiful segue in how we document that process and how to make it fun and simple and visual. So if you want to do that virtual drum roll, I think
I do. Okay, here we go.
Oh my gosh, we need to get a better sound effects.
Soundboard.
One of those, right? So
well, let me try another one.
Ooh, there you go. There you go. All right. So here's the thing. This is the way. So as soon as I said, like when I was talking about, I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Sticky note secrets.
Sticky note secrets. So we were on a client call and we were talking and I was like, they need a sticky note. They need the sticky note. And Cassie was like, I think it's sticky note secrets time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is how a product is born. Sticky note secrets. So just like what I said with how to create a process and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and that visual came to mind, sticky notes. I hope that, and I'm going to show like a beautiful, gosh, does that, and if you're watching this, so you can watch our episodes on YouTube. And so if you are watching this, then you are seeing the sticky notes. And I hope that sticky notes just bring you joy. Like they bring me joy. Do they not bring you joy, Cassie Brown?
They do bring me joy, and they bring Farah joy. She loves to leave me little notes and draw me little pictures on my sticky notes, but I will also insert here, if you do not have sticky notes, We always have an abundance of note cards from school supplies and things like that. They work just as well, although they're not as fun because they don't stick to the walls and the tables and things like that. But yeah, they are so much fun. They're colorful and they're bold and they're different sizes and things like that. And so I won't detract any longer, but I will insert this and say, like, sticky notes are another form of Rhonda's love language. And I just love it because every room in her house, like there's a pile or there's a basket or there's something with like sticky notes everywhere. So I love this. Like even Jack was like, that's a framework. So, I love it.
I just wrote that down. It's funny that you say that. So really quickly, Secret Santa, my Secret Santa, they know my love language. And what they bought me as my Christmas gift was a stack of sticky notes. And when I opened, and she got the expensive ones. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love these. So there's a little guilt around how many sticky notes that I have, all sizes. But here's the simple idea around the sticky note secrets is that one idea is listed or written on one sticky note. I want you to think about this like Twitter, right? We're limited to a number of characters. And I think that this process of one idea per one sticky note helps you further break down the steps. Now, to give you an example, Cassie and I both spoke on stage a couple of times last year, and where Jack came in and said, oh, that's a framework, Mom. So the big topic ideas were actually on one colored sticky note. And for a couple of weeks, like one side of my dining room table was sticky notes. But the idea is when you're in free flow of thinking about all of the things, it's one idea per sticky note, and you just let it go. When you visually then can see it, so the ideas, we're taking it out of our head and now we can see it. We've limited ourselves. So now we don't get mired down in the details. The beautiful thing about a sticky note is you can pick them up and you can move them. You can do this on a whiteboard. You can do this on your wall. You can do this on your dining room table. And then you can start to organize all of those ideas that are stirring around in your head. If you want to get fancy pants, you can use different color sticky notes. Once you have the main idea down, if we're thinking like writing a paper, topic, sentence, that H1 headline, right? That is one color. And then underneath, what are the supporting things that we want for that H1 or the yellow sticky note, I will say. I think that limiting yourself helps you not become overwhelmed in documenting that process. And what was slides and a stage, like a presentation in front of a large group of people, was a simple sticky note process that was laid out on my dining room table. I had yellow stickies for my major topics, and then I used different colors for the supporting details. And I was able to, unlike a whiteboard where you write it and you erase it and you write it, you don't see how that process evolves. By using a sticky note and one thing per sticky note, using different colors, you can pick them up, you can move them. And what it allows you to do is really narrow it down to the bare essentials, like the grit that you need to complete the task. And it just is really, I hope everybody, and I'm going to encourage you to go out to Walmart, go to Target, go to your office supply store, use Amazon, grab some sticky notes, and whatever process, whatever idea that you have, if it's a course, if it's a coaching program, if it is your service, use that sticky note process to get those ideas that are swarming around with the kitties, with the dogs, with the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, all of the things that are swarming around in your head, get it out and pour it into sticky notes. Now you can further refine this and you can use big sticky notes and smaller sticky notes as subtasks. You can make it, again, as simple or as complicated as you want that process to look like. But I think the biggest takeaway is that it is it's a mind map. It's a visual process.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like that kinetic learner. I can touch this, I can read it, I can touch it, I can say it and things like that. So it's touching all of your senses. But I think it's really important to note that when you're brainstorming anything, when Rhonda talks about that flow state. Like I call it stream of consciousness. Like just allow yourself to write those things down. And what you actually start to do is you go from this like broad umbrella type of, this is my system for sales, or this is my system for my morning routine, or insert what you want to organize here, is you start with these broad things, but then you also see how they stack within each other, where we think 3 different steps may actually fall into the same category. And if you were to go granular right from the start, you can get lost in the weeds. So I really like pulling back. I like the stream of consciousness to get it all out. Then I like going back through and grouping and sorting and eliminating. I may put one word down and then I may put another word, and I'm like, that's essentially the same thing. This is what it needs to be. And when you do that, you're identifying duplication in your process, and you're identifying wasted time, wasted energy, wasted effort, wasted steps for your team or someone else that could possibly be helping you with this. And so it's a really fun process to be able to do that. But I just wanted to highlight the nuances there to stay super top level stream of consciousness. Like it might mean like a mind map, it'll open the door to something, and you'll always start to get granular, and then you'll probably, something else will pop up in your brain that's on a completely different tangent. Just keep going until nothing is left in your brain to put another word on another sticky note. Then organize and eliminate.
And I think that like you could have 50 sticky notes on the table. That is not overwhelming, because then when you have 50 sticky notes, now you start grouping like things. And from there, like that whole process that Cassie was talking about, where am I duplicating? Where can I eliminate? And then you can go back. That's just the first round. Then you can go back. I really recommend, like, once you do that first run and you get somewhat organized, you need to leave it. Don't continue hours on end and drill down. Let your mind breathe. We just dumped a whole bunch of stuff on sticky notes. We started to organize them, and internally there is a win that comes from that process. So just like when we write a paper, we have a rough draft, leave it and come back to it, because now we're going to have another perspective and another way that we can organize really our thoughts. And it's interesting if you think about it, I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. So I use Trello as a project management tool. I love the simplicity of Trello. I talk about Trello as a large piece of poster board with organized sticky notes. And so you can, I know, oh my goodness. I will another thing that I say is like, learn a tool, pick a tool, you're not missing out. And I could have gone to ClickUp, I could have gone to Asana, I could have gotten more granular, but the simplicity, you can see now, my love of Trello is really the sticky note process, taking a digital form that now I can share with others in my team, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how you can translate. I've given the example a couple of times of the presentations that Cassie and I did last year. I would take photographs on my phone, and then I could just carry it around with me. If I had a thought, I would look back at the sticky notes that were already laid. If I wasn't at home, just like an idea would come to me because I let it rest. You don't have to complete that whole process like in one sitting, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so I just want to let that sink in, because in our efforts of being efficient and really paying attention, sometimes we don't even allow ourselves that creative space. And I call it marinating. And I also have a little visual of this little person running around in my head, like looking through file systems. That is my autopilot brain that's checking what I just created, what I just did a brain dump on. And so subconsciously, this little person's running around in my head and checking all of these files, like what Rhonda said. What did I miss? oh, this needs to go there. And the only way that happens is when you do allow that creative breathing space. And I really feel that's important. It's not talked about enough. We look at A to Z in 90 minutes and things like that. And we think if we're not meeting that metrics that we're falling short. And that is not true. Some of the best things that I've done this process, I've brain dumped. And again, it doesn't have to be sticky notes. It could be notepads. It could be a spiral notebook. I have spiral notebooks everywhere because I just get things out of my head and then I let them rest. And sometimes 2 or 3 days. And then what we come back to is so much better than if we would have just kept the pressure on us and pined away at it. Sometimes the most productive you could be is to give yourself a creative outlet, to take a walk, to go kayaking, to do something with your family that is completely unrelated to what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we needed to emphasize that there.
Yeah, and I know that you just said, so I don't want to correct you, Cassie Brown, but one of the things that you said, brain dump wherever you have, whatever you have access to. I really want to take it a step further, and I really want to challenge you. Because within, and we'll call it a container of a sticky note,
That's true. There's freedom. There's freedom in the construct of design.
There is a limit. And just like Twitter, it used to be 120 characters. I don't know what it is, but we are limited. And when we are limited, then we hit it and we go, we hit it and we go. And she's talking about time. Typically for the exercise, when you're doing a brain dump, I say set a timer for 10 minutes. Again, you do not want to get caught in the weeds. So we set the timer for 10 minutes and you just let it flow. One thing per sticky note. And if you have 100 sticky notes, I don't care. But guess what? It's out of your head. Whether you say you're a visual person or not, you are. Because when you see it in front of you, it's going to take on a life of its own. Leave it and come back to it and just continue to fester in it. I think that use your table, use your wall, use a poster board, use a whiteboard. Again, Cassie Brown, who makes the rules?
We make the rules.
And it can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. I want you to own it and I want you to feel confident in it. If I can be confident in sharing my sticky note process that I know can transform ideas, you can be confident in keeping things simple.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Again, I'm going to do a hat tip to, like we did a episode, it could be last episode or a couple back. I don't know, but we talked about the value and the simplicity, right? And this is what so many people, we think that complicated systems is what makes things valuable, is look how complicated this was and how long it took me to make it simple, make it fun, make it so easy for someone else to follow. Like it's a paint by number and it's incredible. So I think at this point, we can put a pin in this amazing episode. I feel like, and I love the fact that Rhonda was like, no, it's not going to be on anything. You're going to take 10 minutes. So I'm going to challenge you guys. If you've been following along with us, whether you're watching us on YouTube, you're listening to us on the podcast, make a commitment, where you make an appointment with yourself, book a time slot, book one of your call time slots with yourself, 30 minutes. Okay. To do this exercise, take 10 to do the brain dump, give yourself 10 to sort and organize. And then the next 10 is you getting a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, or a cup of wine, and going for a walk. That's it. You let it marinate. You walk away from it and let it marinate and circle back around. Let us know, how did that feel? Because that alone is crazy simple. And that's what I love about it.
There will be an internal calm that will come from doing this exercise. We're going to challenge you to do it. But if you're feeling heavy, if you're feeling a lot of anxiety, if you're feeling a lot of dread, I used to say I felt like I was walking around in fog. I had so many ideas. I could do so many things. And the clarity comes from the actual imperfect action that you take. And that is taking the step with the sticky notes. Enjoy it. Have fun with it.
Amen. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening with us. And we will catch you next episode. Take care.